Big offensive performances from Zach Neto and Mickey Moniak. Yes, Mickey Moniak, as well as a gutsy bullpen performance, are enough for the Angels to avoid the sweep on Wednesday night. We'll break down an exciting 7-2 Halo victory on tonight's edition of the Locked On Angels Postcast.
You are Locked On Angels Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, Halo Nation. Hello, Halo hopefuls, and welcome to the latest edition of the Locked On Angels Postcast, coming at you live, as always, after every single Angels game, not just when they win, when they lose, but finally when they win tonight, here on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, and after the fact, wherever you get the Locked On Angels podcast feed. 7-2, the final. Finally, it's the Angels winning a game by 5 runs, not losing by 5 runs, thanks to huge offensive performances from the bottom of the lineup. Zach Neto, 3 hits and a home run. Mickey Moniak, 2 hits and a home run. And a solid bullpen performance. A lot of adversity multiple times, but they get out of it every time to help avoid a sweep at the hands of the Texas Rangers. Shout out to everybody in here. As always, Jeff, Anaheim Angels win, Daniel Barry, just to name a few. Appreciate all of you for being in here as always. And a shout out to the sponsor of today's show. It is PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. On tonight's show, we will talk about an Griffin Canning start, but yes, a clutch performance from the bullpen, multiple arms coming through in dicey moments. We'll talk about, does Ron Washington deserve some credit? Certainly the wins and losses don't help his case, but if you're an educated fan, if you're a reasonable fan, you'll probably agree with me that Ron Washington still deserves some credit. But of course, we have to start today's show talking about big offensive performances by the 8 and 9 hitters for the Angels tonight in Zach Neto and Mickey Moniak. Coming in to the game, there was all this talk, it's me leading it yesterday, about Logan O'Hoppe needing to be moved up in the lineup. He does get moved up from 6th to 5th, but what we see here as he goes 1 for 3 is that he needs to be 4th. It needs to be 4th. If O'Hoppe is hitting 4th after Ward and before Pilar, I'm feeling real good about the lineup. Other than that, I'm okay with it. I like seeing Pilar have a chance to hit. Unfortunately, we've really killed his mojo because he was great, a month ago. We don't play him for 2 weeks, and now he's really fallen off, another 0 for 4. But the top of the lineup did not do much. Rendon, having a Rendon renewal, a return to the real Rendon, 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. My goodness. Shanuel 1 for 3. Taylor Ward 0 for 3. Did have a walk. Pilar 0 for 4. O'Hoppe was okay. Drury, he got on a couple times with the walk. Matt Thaiss actually was okay. But the 8 and 9 hitters, Zach Neto, who a couple games ago was in the midst of one of the worst series I've ever seen from him. He's not going to be consistent offensively at this stage, but last series or a couple series ago, he was fumbling the ball defensively, which is something we don't expect from Zach Neto. Mentally, he wasn't there. He was frustrated. So we'll get to why I'm going to give Ron Washington some credit for Neto having this big performance. But Zach Neto, like I said, he goes 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs, 2 runs. He had the huge home run there in the 8th inning to really pull away and increase the lead. But we have to get to how the lead was started. And it was started in the bottom of the 2nd inning because for once Griffin Canning did not give up a run in the 1st. And in the bottom of the 2nd, Zach Neto helps start the rally. It started by Logan O'Hoppe getting hit by a pitch, but then O'Hoppe gets caught stealing at 2nd. And this was one of the several times where the Angels had good innings where they scored, but they could have scored more. And I was watching the rest of this game going, are the Angels going to get caught? Are the baseball gods going to penalize them for having a caught stealing with Logan O'Hoppe here for later in the inning, having Zach Neto getting thrown out, trying to extend a play or extend a double to a triple, I believe, if I remember correctly. But there was multiple times where I got a little nervous that they were leaving runs on the board, but it did not matter because of the bullpen, which we'll get to later. But bottom of the 2nd inning, O'Hoppe hit by a pitch. He gets caught stealing, and you're thinking, oh man, there goes a rally. But Brandon Drury walks, Matt Thaiss walks. first and second, Zach Neto comes up and he gets his big day started with an RBI single on a liner to right field. Just a good piece of hitting. 1-2 count, fouls off several pitches, 3 in a row while it's 1-2. He falls behind 0-2 actually, gets a ball, then fouls off 3 pitches, and then gets a sinker high and away, and he rips it. RBI single. There's kind of a fielding error, the fielding error by Janikowski, and I think, the run was going to score regardless, but still given actually, no, I don't think they gave Neto the RBI on this one. I'm not sure, actually, what the final ruling was there, but the error certainly helped, but it didn't matter because the next at-bat, Mickey Mouse, Moniak, but hey, not today. Today, phenomenal. He gets a high fastball on 1-0 after a high and away fastball made it 1-0, and he drives it into right center field. Great piece of hitting. Fastball at the letters. Don't really expect that from Moniak, to be honest. He's been very shaky on the high fastball, at least in my opinion, but he rips this one 100 exit velo. Just 387 feet. Certainly doesn't get out in every park, but just like that, it's 4-0 out of nowhere in the second inning. So many times the Angels take so long to get started, but not tonight. 4-0, and it helped Griffin Canning for once he gets through a first inning, and then for once he gets a lead. And you're thinking Griffin Canning is actually going to have a nice start, and he did for a while. He then fell apart a little bit in the 5th inning. We'll get to that later, but it's 4-0. And then in the third, we get one more, thanks again to, some help from the other team, but also just good pieces of hitting. Logan O'Hoppe comes through with the base hit. Matt Dice comes through with his second hit of the game, or his first hit of the game, his second time on base, and then Zach Neto again. This time it's a double. Drury's able to score, but Neto gets thrown out at third. Not really at third. He rounds second way too harshly. Third base coach holds Matt Dice at third. Zach Neto, I think, expected Dice to go home. He expected the throw to be home, and regardless of the outcome, he thought he was going to cruise into third. He sees Matt Dice hit the brakes at third. He's got to hit the brakes at second. Too late. He gets back, picked at second, thrown out. So that was the second time. First, we had Logan O'Hoppe getting thrown out, caught stealing on what was a miscommunication. He thought it was a hit and run, I think. It was not. And then here we have this, and I'm thinking, even though it's 5-0, are the Angels going to get penalized, like I said, by the baseball gods for these base running issues? But thank goodness they did not, because the pitching, for the most part, was great. We saw it from Griffin Canning. We saw it from Hans Kraus. But really, that was huge. To finally jump out and have a lead for once, 5-0, felt really great. We haven't seen the Angels ahead, obviously, really at all in the month of July because they've lost just about every game, but we haven't seen them have good early innings in a while either. So it felt great to be up 5-0, to give Griffin Canning some help, because you never know what you're going to get from Griffin Canning, and he was good in this one for the most part. Not great. 4 1/3 inning pitch, gives up 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks. He gave up a home run, 3 strikeouts, and it was all in the 5th inning for him. He cruised through the first 4, really. Not really any issues. A couple 1-2-3s, or really just a hit here or there. But in the 5th, a Jonah Heim single and a Taveras home run makes it 5-2. Then he gets Jankowski to ground out, but then back-to-back singles from Simeon and Seager, and then a walk, load the bases. Hans Kraus comes in for Griffin Canning, and he shuts the door. We'll get to the bullpen in a second, but I just have to, tell you how it gets to 5-2. And you're thinking, okay, the Angels kind of do what they do typically. The few times they always have big, starts to the game, big first or second innings, then they seem to do nothing for a while. And we had that for a little bit here. 4 in the second, 1 in the third, but then 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, really nothing doing offensively. But thank goodness Zach Neto had one more big swing in him. In the bottom of the 8th inning, Drury gets on with a walk, and then Zach Neto with 2 outs comes through with a little added insurance to make this an easy win. Another good at-bat. The first time he falls behind 0-2, works it to 1-2, then fouls off 3 pitches. This time gets ahead 2-0, fouls off a hittable pitch, and then gets a really hittable pitch, a hanging sweeper on 2-1, and he crushed it. 104.8 exit velo, 387 feet, and the Angels go up 7-2, and that was all the Angels needed, certainly, to get out of this one. So, the main storylines offensively, of course, the bottom of the lineup, the 8 and 9. Zach Neto, once again, 3 for 4, 2 runs, the big home run there in the 8th, 3 RBIs. we'll get to why I'm going to give Ron Washington some of the credit. We heard Neto talk, maybe you didn't, but I heard him in the post-game interview, said he's been working with the hitting coaches. He knows it's been a rough stretch, a lot of bad at-bats, a lot of swinging at bad pitches, a lot of not making the opposing pitchers earn it. But tonight, like I said, 2 great at-bats, fouling off pitches on a 2-strike at-bat, and then getting ahead of another at-bat. That is professional hitting that we're going to see hopefully more and more from Zach Neto. Statistically, not looking too bad. 250 is okay. 729 OPS now. We'll take that. We know he's still primarily a fielder. That's why he's hitting 8th in the lineup. But that's a pretty decent stat line, certainly better than the guys hitting above him. Matt Dice, Brandon Drury, even Taylor Ward, even Kevin Pillar at this point, even, let's be honest, Nolan Schanuel, really even Rendon. You could make the argument still that Neto's been maybe the 2nd or 3rd best hitter on the team, whether you count Rengifo or not. I mean, you kind of have to. Rengifo's been the best, but Ohapi's probably 2nd, and Zach Neto is still probably 3rd. His OPS right there around Taylor Ward's. Pillar's obviously had a hot stretch, but he's cooled down. So Zach Neto certainly deserves his credit. He's heated up in the past few games after he had a really rough stretch. Like I said, Ron Washington deserves some credit for that. But also Mickey Moniak. We know how much we criticize this guy. We know how much I criticize him. We know how much every fan criticizes him. Adele did not play tonight, and the lineup looks a lot better when only one of them is in it. I've said it so many times. It should be simple. Against righties, it should be Moniak. Against lefties, it should be Adele. Ron Washington was kind of lucked into this one. Could not play Adele. I guess he had some stomach virus something. So Adele was not available tonight. But look what happens when it's only one guy. If Moniak and Adele are back-to-back, the pitcher's licking his chops. The pitcher is confident. But if it's a Zach Neto who's swinging confidently tonight, then a Mickey Moniak, it's just one guy who's sub 200, and then Rendon's after him. So Moniak a little bit more protected in the lineup, even at the 9 spot, and he comes through with a couple. Not one. We've seen Moniak have 1 for 4s with a home run or something. Nice to see him have a home run, but also have another hit. 3 RBIs, no strikeouts. Great performance from Moniak. You know, the OPS is still under 600. The average is still under 200. But hopefully in the next couple weeks, he can build up those stats, get hot, and at least handle the righties. And Adele can handle lefties. That's what I've been saying all along. So a long breakdown there of the hitting tonight, but actually some hitting to talk about. So maybe I'm a little amped up, a little excited. There's actually some hitting to talk about. We're going to take our first break here, and when we come back, I'm going to tell you why 7 runs was more than enough. It wasn't really because of Griffin Canning. It was because of some clutch bullpen pitching. We'll talk about it after a first break here on the Locked On Angels Postcast. Today's show is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. I'm officially going to New York in about 5 days. On Sunday night, I will be leaving San Francisco. I'll be flying across the country to New York. And still, the plan is to go to a Mets game, not a Yankees game. I've already been to Yankee Stadium. I've not been to Citi Field. So that's the plan. Booking.com, I'll figure out the tickets, but Booking.com already had me set, ready to go. I'm going to be in multiple different areas, a hotel in one place, sort of a bed and breakfast in another, different parts of New York. Booking.com. I use the app. You can use the website. Either way, they make it so easy. So from hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And here's the key. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Like I said, I'm going to New York, and I've already obviously figured out the flight. I've figured out the booking with Booking.com. But you know what I haven't figured out yet? The tickets to the Mets game. And guess what? I don't have to, because like I said, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. So I don't need to sweat. I'm figuring out other parts of the trip. I don't need to worry about the tickets. I know that Game Time is going to hook me up. I'm going to wait. The ticket prices are actually going to go down, and I'm going to take advantage of the killer last-minute deals, the all-in prices, the views from your seat, the lowest price guarantee, so much more. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Like I said, last-minute deals where you can save up to 60%. I love the all-in pricing. It shows you what the actual price is after the fees, after the taxes, not all these secret fees that come in at checkout. And above all, I love the seat views too. I've never been to Citi Field. I have no idea what the seating view is going to look like, but Game Time on the app, it shows you. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On Angels Postcast, and the Angels are victorious, baby. 7-2 the final. I know, doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Still 16 games under 500 at 38-54, but it's always great to avoid a sweep, especially against a division rival. Always great to beat a division rival, and some encouraging performances from some guys you want to see have encouraging performances. Zach Neto, we know he's the future of the shortstop position for the Angels. He's been good in the field, heating up offensively. Love to see it. And Mickey Moniak, a guy who is kind of in a do it now or never do it again season, a do or die season for him. Maybe he can heat up. He certainly was great tonight, 2 for 4 with a big fly of his own. We already talked about the hitting, but why was the 7 runs more than enough for the Angels tonight? It was because of the bullpen. Like I said, Griffin Canning was great for the first 4 innings, but things kind of exploded on him in the 5th inning, and his stat line ends up being just 4 1/3, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, and the home run, which comes in the 5th. If you missed the game, I'll tell you what happened in the 5th. It had been a great start, but he gives up a single to Jonah Heim, and then, like I said earlier, Taveras homers on a 3-2 pitch from Griffin Canning, and not a good pitch at all. He just like grooves a changeup right down the middle on 3-2, and I don't care if you're sitting fastball. Sometimes a pitch is just so good that no matter what you're sitting, you're going to crush it. And a changeup right there, Taveras crushes it. 102 exit velo, 401 feet. And that 5-0 lead is suddenly 5-2. Now, there's a great lead. You know, a 5-run lead, you give up 2 runs, it's okay. For once, Griffin Canning did not have a bad first. I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is how you respond and him not responding well enough. He gets a ground out, good response, but then back-to-back singles from Marcus Semien on a slider. I'd say pretty decent on 2 strikes, actually. Good piece of hitting from Semien, but then a changeup, not an awful pitch, not a great pitch, that Seager's able to drive for a base hit, and suddenly 2 are back on. You give up the 2-run homer, but if you respond and get everyone else out, it's okay. You got a lead. That's just pitching with the lead. But you give up 2 singles, and then the biggest disappointment of all is a 4-pitch walk to Josh Smith makes it bases loaded with 1 out. I have no idea why there's a 4-pitch walk when you have a 5-2 lead. Now the bases are loaded. Now the tying run is on first base. And so Ron Washington, I think at the perfect time, honestly, even after the 2 singles, I think you give Canning one more opportunity because it's just the 5th inning, because it's still 5-2. He gives him that opportunity. He walks Josh Smith on 4 pitches, and then absolutely no questions asked. Time to get Canning out of this game. And who comes in? Hans Kraus. He's got the great name, and tonight he had the great performance. Back-to-back beautiful strikeouts. Gets Wyatt Langford, who's been good in this series, 1-2-3, called strike 3 on a slider right at the knees. Not really a great pitch, to be honest, but it works. And then he gets Adolis Garcia, who was swinging for the fences. He wanted a grand slam really badly, but instead a great 2-2 slider down and away, swing and a miss, strike 3 on Adolis Garcia, side retired. So Hans Kraus, clutch in the 5th. Clutch again in the 6th, gives up a leadoff walk, but immediately a double play and a ground out makes it easy. And then Hunter Strickland comes in for Hans Kraus, gets himself in quite the jam. Leadoff single, then a walk, a flyout from Seager that advances Jankowski to 3rd, so it's 1st and 3rd with just 1 out. Then he hits Josh Smith, who once again gets on via the walk, this time hit by a pitch. And once again, the bases are loaded. Once again, that 3-run lead is scary when the bases are loaded, but just like Hans Kraus coming in and saving Canning, this time Hunter Strickland does it all himself at first. He gets Wyatt Langford striking out again, another big strikeout for Langford, and then, I question this, Ron Washington takes out Strickland after the strikeout for Jose Marte. Why? I have no idea. You got a righty coming up in Adolis Garcia. You have Hunter Strickland, who's able to calm down, get a strikeout on Langford. I, to be honest, have no idea why Ron Washington takes out Hunter Strickland, puts in another righty, obviously against a righty in Garcia, but you take out a righty for a righty. Not sure why, But hey, I'm not going to question it. It works out perfectly. Marte takes just one pitch, throws a high and in sinker to Adolis Garcia, and he pops him up on one pitch. So Strickland gets into quite a jam. He gets out of it initially with a strikeout, and then I don't know why Ron Washington went to Jose Marte. Certainly had me nervous that a grand slam from Adolis Garcia was coming, but no. How about a pop-up on one pitch? But the clutch pitching was not over. The eighth was pretty easy from Jose Marte, 1, 2, 3, 2 groundouts and a strikeout. And then in the ninth, Estevez comes in, 1, 2, 3 as well. So, I mean, obviously when you have a 5-run lead, Estevez is pretty easy. That felt like Ron Washington getting Estevez in a low-pressure moment where you know he's probably going to go 1 for 3. He's not going to get a save or anything, but lower that ERA. Certainly with the trade deadline coming up, we will certainly take a 1-2-3 inning from Estevez to get his ERA at 2.79. Jose Marte's ERA gets down to 3.55. Don't think he's a trade candidate, but Hunter Strickland certainly is, and he's able to lower that ERA a bit, get a strikeout, get out of a tough situation. He's now at a 3.38 ERA. Trade candidate for sure. And then Hans Kraus. How about Hans Kraus? A 0.84 ERA. I know it's not been a ton of appearances for Hans Kraus, just 9 games at this point, just 10 2/3 inning pitched. But hey, a sub-1 ERA always looks great, and 10 innings is enough time to give him the credit and say it's a real stat line. So shout out to the bullpen, very clutch tonight. Griffin Canning, good for 4 innings, not good in the 5th, but good enough to be, the victorious starting pitcher, and the bullpen certainly came through. So with that being said, when I come back, I'm going to read your comments as always. I'm going to tell you why Ron Washington deserves some credit, and my guide to watching the Angels, the graphic isn't ready yet. It'll be ready tomorrow, but I'm still going to quickly go down my checklist, my goals for the game, my guide for watching the Angels, and see how it did tonight here on Wednesday night. We'll do all of that after our last break. Shout out to everybody on here on the Locked On Angels Postcast. Now, finally, today's show is brought to you by my favorite people at PrizePicks. If you somehow don't know what PrizePicks is, it's America's #1 daily fantasy app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because unlike other apps where you have to compete against other people, it's not about if your lineup did well, it's about if it did better than others. Nah, none of that. PrizePicks is just, did your lineup hit? You just got to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. For example, if you had Mickey Moniak over on hits, on runs, on RBIs, on anything, you would have been good. If you had more, if you had more on Zach Neto, just about anything hitting, you would have been great. If you had less on most Rangers hitters tonight, you would have won. So not only is it easy and simple, but they have great promotions like lowering select player stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have losing lineups on Fridays. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We are back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On Angels Postcast, and whenever the Angels win, I get so fired up that I forget to even introduce myself. I am Gavin Carlson. If you don't know who I am, if it's your first time on the postcast, welcome. You picked a good night. The Angels actually won a baseball game. But if you don't know who I am, I spent 4 years as a credentialed journalist in the LA area. I wrote articles, conducted interviews, hosted podcasts, attended, men's basketball at UCLA, men's basketball games, football games in the Rose Bowl, in the press box, courtside. I flew to Albany, New York to cover March Madness. I flew to Oregon State, to San Diego. I've been everywhere. I've put the time in. And of course, now I'm a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I'm the host of the Angels Postcast. And the Angels, for once, give me a win to talk about. 7-2 the final. Able to avoid a sweep of the Rangers thanks to big performances from Zach Neto and Mickey Moniak, thanks to clutch pitching from the bullpen, and thanks to some good coaching from Ron Washington. Let me get into that before I get into the comments, before I get into my goals for the game and how many of them hit tonight. But why does Ron Washington deserve some credit? Well, number one, I said it was time to move Logan O'Hoppe up in the lineup, and he did that. He heard me. Sure, he didn't move him to cleanup, but he moved him up one spot, and it helped. Obviously not a huge game for O'Hoppe tonight, but 1 for 3 is solid. But what happens? The lineup after O'Hoppe does really well. And O'Hoppe was doing well hitting 6, but if you move him up, if you're able to move things around, it's a lot harder to pitch to Zach Neto if you have to get through Brandon Drury and Matt Thaiss to get to him, rather than if you're getting through a struggling Matt Thaiss or a struggling Zach Neto, and then you got O'Hoppe coming up who should be hitting way higher in the lineup. So make it harder on pitches. Have your on pitchers, have your better hitters hitting earlier in the lineup. Pretty simple concept. Angels haven't really been following it so far, but if they move O'Hoppe up, it helps out a little bit, and the bottom of the lineup with the pitchers struggling to get through the top of the lineup comes up clutch multiple times. That's number one. Number two, what I was preaching for, maybe I'm just giving Ron Washington credit because he's listening to some of the things I was saying the Angels needed to do, but I'm going to give him the credit. He gave Zach Neto a day off. It sounds so simple, but Zach Neto had been playing shortstop like every single night, every single day, and you could tell at the end of the Tigers series, in the A's series, that Zach Neto was so frustrated. Offensively, he'd come up in big moments, he'd pop the ball up, he'd slam his bat on the ground, he'd strike out, he'd chuck his helmet. He was angry. At shortstop in the field, multiple errors or mistakes, balls going under his glove, balls going off his glove, missing sidearm, barehanded pickups, frustration in the field, frustration at the plate. It was time to give Zach Neto a day off. And finally, Ron Washington did that to open up the series. Obviously, it was in a loss, but you see what happens when you give a young guy who is very hard on himself, like Logan O'Hoppe. He is the future of this franchise. He has the skills, but also the mentality of someone that I want to be my shortstop for a while. You can tell he's hard on himself. He said it in the post-game press conference that he was getting on himself for having bad at-bats, but able to have a great performance in this one, able to have a good performance yesterday. I'm pulling up the stats, trying to find it because I can't find it right now, but he was good yesterday as well. Where is it? Here it is. 2 for 4 yesterday against the Rangers, of course, with a 1 strikeout, but you can live with that when you go 2 for 4. So after a rough stretch where he was 1 for 4, 0 for 3, 1 for 4, 0 for 3, 1 for 5, 0 for 4. So not a good stretch, just 3 hits in, I'm not going to do that math right now, but I can do that. 3 hits in 23 at-bats. Not great. But what does he respond with? In his last 8 at-bats, he's got 5 hits, 3 tonight, including the big home run, to cap off a nice back-to-back game performance from him. And it's not surprising me, not surprising most people, it comes after a day off to cool yourself down. You saw him, I loved it. Even though Brandon Drury didn't see him, I loved the emotion in the dugout when Brandon Drury got on, even when Zach Neto wasn't playing. You could tell he's young, he's got energy. But what does that mean? It means when things are going well, they're going really well. It means when things are not going well, you're hard on yourself. So you give him a day off to compose himself, to watch the game from the dugout, and he responds with back-to-back great hitting performances. And Ron Washington, who we know, he takes his shortstops under his shoulder, under his arm, under his sleeve, and he gives them advice. We heard it when they were playing the Cubs. They were talking about Dansby Swanson having a career renaissance under Ron Washington. We saw Ron Washington actually organize a meeting between Zach Neto and Dansby Swanson during the Cubs series. So we know how Ron Washington feels about shortstops, about taking them under his arm, about giving them advice. We've seen Zach Neto improve in the field, become a really, really solid fielder, and Ron Washington did the right thing, gave him a day off, and he has responded well. So maybe you might think I'm cherry picking, but I don't know. These were 2 things I was calling for. O'Hoppe to get moved up in the lineup, Zach Neto to get a day off, and the other thing was to only have Moniak or Adell in the lineup at all times, not both. He hasn't really followed that. He kind of was given a gift here with Adell not being available tonight. It still worked out, though. So I think Ron Washington deserves some credit. I know a lot of people are being hard on him because this team is doing no good, but I still don't think it's on him at all. I think he's being told that he has to play certain guys because they're young, and, it is what it is. It is what it is. So I think Ron Washington deserves some credit. I'm going to get into the comments, and then I'm going to quickly tell you my goals for the game, for every game, and how they did tonight. Jeff checking in. He said he's at work. Good night. Appreciate you for checking in as always. Anaheim Angels says it's just 1 game, 1 win doesn't change much. Yes, that is true, but that's why I'm going to get to my goals for every game and tell you why the win is great, but certain things you're looking for and certain things happen tonight. Angels win, says Neto is a future cornerstone like O'Hoppe. Absolutely. He says Moniak, I don't think he will be part of that, but we shall see, I suppose. Nice win tonight, but in context, still lost 2 out of 3. It's a great way of putting it. Like I said, O'Hoppe a cornerstone, Neto a cornerstone, and Anthony Jimenez agrees, says O'Hoppe Neto is the connection of the future. But Alex says, Angels won? What? I agree. I had that reaction to Mickey Moniak had a good game. What? Even in a good game, it's normally one home run, but one home run and actually another hit too. What? He also said, do you think the Angels getting swept versus Seattle? I think so, or they win the series. I don't know, because Seattle's kind of been up and down. A lot of pressure on them right now with Houston playing really well. You know that they want this to be a get-right series, the Mariners against the low-life Angels. But we'll see. Division matchups, you never know. You never know. Earlier in the year, let's not forget, the Angels were 4-2 in back-to-back series against the Rangers and Astros. So anything can happen in division matchups. We'll see. I'm not going to make a prediction quite yet. Anthony Jimenez says Rendon's 16-game on-base streak is over. Yeah, I know. That was something they were really talking up. It doesn't count as a streak if in between games you miss 60 games. No, I don't think it should count as a streak, to be honest. Saucy James, what up? He says O'Hoppe at DH night while Theis catches was a nice switch. Better than not having him in the lineup. Exactly. Once again, kind of a common thing sometimes if you have a catcher who's great, who plays every night, give him a chance to DH. But still, Ron Washington deserves his credit for that as well. It worked out. Theis, he's a lefty. He should really only be hitting against righties. You pick a good game for Logan O'Hoppe to DH and for Matt Theis to play catcher when you're playing against a righty, when you want to find an excuse to get another lefty in the lineup. So I think, yes, makes perfect sense. And Anaheim Angel finally, as always, needs some O'Hoppe in the lineup. Absolutely. He's been the best hitter other than Rengifo. Rengifo's out, so he's the best hitter we have. He's got to be in the lineup. I still think you move him up one slot to catcher or to clean up, especially Kevin Pillar has fallen off a cliff. Why not bat O'Hoppe cleanup? Why not have him between Taylor Ward and Pillar? Talk about being protected. That's a lot more protected than yesterday when he was like after Drury and before Moniak or something like that. So protect O'Hoppe even more. Hit him clean up after Taylor Ward and before Kevin Pillar. That's what I think should happen. But shout out to all of you in the comment section. Appreciate it as always. Real quick, tomorrow we will have Gavin's goals. Gavin's guidelines for watching the Angels. We'll actually have a graphic so you can actually see what I'm saying. But we're going to still go through my goals. I think I even previewed it in the postcast yesterday. Number 1 is win, and we got the win. So you're 1 for 1. Number 2 is the future of the franchise as a whole. Shanuel, O'Hoppe, Neto, somewhat Moniak and Adele, certainly Ben Joyce and Soriano. Those are the faces of the future. How did they do? That's priority number 2. And I think you have to say, B+ from the futures of the franchise. Certainly Zach Neto with an A+ performance. O'Hoppe with a B+ performance, 1 for 3. That's still fine. And Moniak, I know we've debated if he deserves to be in that future of the franchise group. He probably doesn't. He's kind of in that second tier of still young, still can blossom into something, but certainly not a future cornerstone for sure. But he was great. We didn't see Ben Joyce. We didn't see Soriano. We didn't see Adele. Shanuel was okay as well, 1 for 3 with a walk. So kind of a B+, A- performance from the futures of the franchise. So the young guys do well, and it's a win. So I think that's 2 for 2. Number 3 is how did the trade candidates do tonight? Taylor Ward, not great, 0 for 3. He was walked, but the average goes down, so not good there. Who else? Carlos Estevez, certainly a trade candidate. He has a 1-2-3 ninth inning, so that's good. Hunter Strickland had a performance, but the stats will end up being improved. He got out of a tough situation, so I feel like it's still a plus. So I'd say like a B- performance from the trade candidates. I think he still checked the box off. So kind of 3 for 3. Number 4 is always, was there Angel foolishness? We did have a couple of clowny things on the bases. O'Hoppe, miscommunication on a hit and run, I believe, gets caught stealing. And then Neto does get, thrown out at second. Some confusion about rounding second base. So I think I am going to have to put like maybe a half check on there being some foolishness. But still, pretty clean game. The top 3 priorities all come through, I'd say. Certainly a win. Certainly the young guys come through. And the trade candidates did okay. Certainly the value does not go down. So 3 for 4. The 5th is always just how did everybody else do? And everybody else did all right. Hans Kraus was good. Jose Marte was good. Canning wasn't terrible. So I'd say a pretty darn positive outcome. Not only in the win column, because of course, win is the number 1 priority and it happens. But even if the win doesn't happen, this is a game where you say you're encouraged by what you see. The young guys, the faces of the future come through. The trade values don't go down at least. For an Estevez, it goes up. For Hunter Strickland, it probably goes up. So positive performance. Tomorrow it'll make more sense when I have the graphic of Gavin's goals, Gavin's guidelines for watching the game. We'll think of some name for it or something like that. But certainly a positive performance. Not going to act like the Angels are winning the World Series, but come on, go day by day, watch the game, and root for your team to win and root for the right things to happen. And we got most of that tonight. So sounds like a successful winning Wednesday night. But with all that being said, shout out to everybody in here. I appreciate all the support. Please, 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 if you like the video, leave a like. It helps me out so much. We're trying to grow this channel, trying to grow this community after every single Angels game. Coming here for the best breakdown, the stats, the outlook on the future, everything. So please leave a like, appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about the video, what you thought about the postcast. Let me know, does Mickey Moniak still have a future on this Angels franchise? Is he a guy that you want to see on the team next year? Certainly that's a polarizing question. And obviously, please subscribe if you haven't already. But with all that being said, it is 10 p.m. So I'm going to sign off. You have a great rest of your Wednesday night, and I'll see you back here tomorrow as a new series begins for our Halos. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.